Thanks for joining today's Tech Talk on converting models from PlantWise to OpenPlant Modeler. My name is Tim Lawrence, and I'm the product manager for PlantWise here at Bentley. So let's go over what we're going to cover here today. Come on, PowerPoint. All right. So first of all, we'll start with a PlantWise model. PlantWise allows us to automatically and quickly route 3D piping. It also allows us to very quickly explore different layouts for the process that is being designed. This gives us an idea of the layout at the early stages of a project. We can easily make changes to the model to improve costs, improve the operability, or take safety issues into account at this early stage. But we also want to capture this work when the process moves forward to detailed design, and we've made some major changes with this release to help with this. So our overall goal is to get the model from PlantWise into OpenPlant Modeler. And to do this, we'll convert first the structural steel into or what's known as a integrated structural model, which can be imported into OpenPlant. Once we bring the ISM into OpenPlant, we'll go ahead and actually convert the equipment and the piping into OpenPlant. And once that's done, maybe we can show that we can actually generate an isometric drawing from one of the pipelines, just to kind of show that we have a real OpenPlant model. So that's what we'll be covering today, so let's get started. So we won't go through the whole process of creating a model in PlantWise. We have different ways of helping you to build a model quickly. This can be as simple as being able to make or modify structures such as a pipe rack quickly, or being able to import equipment or piping data into PlantWise using a spreadsheet. So I've started by opening up PlantWise, and then I'll open up one of our demo projects. We've made some changes with the projects for this release. We now have demo projects for imperial, metric, and mixed metric data sets, as well as sample projects for importing data from Access Process or COMOS. With Access Process and COMOS, we can import data from the PFDs from these products into PlantWise to help get the model built quickly and accurately based on the PFD data, along with the sizing for equipment and piping. This release also includes some improvements in this data transfer. So the connectivity that is imported is complete. So this helps you get that PlantWise model built quickly. This is probably worth its own tech talk, and we might have one of these in the near future. For now, what I need to do is open up this metric demo project, and once that opens, we'll go up and open up our model. Just move these around a bit. Sorry. So go to our model, and we'll open our model. For this demo, we're just going to use our basic demo, and now we'll open it up. So with this model, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes to go through some of the things you might have to do if you're using PlantWise to optimize your layout. Once you open your model, you can quickly route it, which we'll do here. We just find our router up there, and just hit route. So in a second or two we can route this model, and once we've done that we can get various reports from it. So just go to our reports and report writer, and as you can see we have a whole bunch of reports already defined here. You can edit and create your own. For now we're just going to take a quick look at this sample model cost here. Bring that up, close that off. And it gives us a bunch of cost data here, and we're just going to go down here and just take a quick look at that and just note that for later. So now what we want to do though is go and make some edits on this project. And actually a little note on those costs, we would never consider those costs to be very highly accurate, but what we can prove here with PlantWise is by doing our edits, etc., we can get these relative differences in those costs. So now what we're going to do is just go and move one of these equipment around. We'll just move it over here for say. This is just a simple goofy little edit, but proves a point. So once we move and edit that equipment, the piping is automatically rerouted with PlantWise, and we can go back to our reports and instantly get that updated cost. So now this maybe isn't a realistic change or anything, but it just proves the point that with a few clicks, whether it's a single equipment or entire groups of equipment, whatever, we can make those edits and get our cost difference right away. And in this instance, I think we'll see that the cost is actually lower. And when we sit and think and look at these things, we'll see that we've got two pipes here that actually ended up being quite a bit shorter. And I know this one is a bit bigger than that one, so that's the kind of thing you can do here. All right, so at this point, we're not going to do any more edits with this, but so we can get a lot of value out of the PlantWise model because it does give us that 3D model right away. You can optimize it, etc. But now we want to take this into detailed design. So we want to be able to capture as much of this work. So to do that, there's three things we're going to try and convert here. So first thing is we have structures in here, all these different members. We have equipment, and we have our piping. Those are the three different things we're going to start moving around here. But before we actually go and start converting the model, we have a couple of things to deal with for piping on this model. The first thing to note is that this model was created using the built-in data tables for piping that come with PlantWise. So this allows you to get started right away with building your model, but this isn't the data that OpenPlant is going to use. So we want to be able to use the OpenPlant piping specs in this model. So it's going to give us a more accurate representation of the model by using the data that will be used for the detailed design. It also saves us making two sets of data, as we can directly import what will be used for OpenPlant. So in order to use the OpenPlant specs, we first need to close the model. So we first should save it before we close it. All right, close that model. All right, and now what we're going to do is go up to our data tables, and we'll see here now that in this release we have a new entry here to update OpenPlant Modeler tables. So once we select that, it's going to actually go and take us to where we have OpenPlant Modeler installed, and go to our projects folder under the workspace, and then we'll go and select metric projects as well, and go into the specs database folder. Once we select that, it has read all the MDB file names in here, so it gives us a complete list of all the specs. So for this simple little example, we're only going to use one spec. And what we're going to do is we're going to select all the components in that. We can pick multiple specs if we want. And another thing too, for the first import, you should select all these components. But if through your work your specs change, like your OpenPlant specs change, and you need to update them, you can come here and you can update individual component types per spec if you want. All right, so we're going to hit OK, and it's going to read in all that data for that spec, and in a couple of seconds it's going to give us a little report. All right, so one thing we need to note from here too is that it's going to tell us there are multiple database entries for a component. So say as an example in our spec we have an elbow at some particular dimension, but we have multiple instances at that dimension because maybe one's made from steel, the other's made from stainless steel. So if you have that scenario, then this will get reported here once we import those specs. And PlantWise is only going to be able to use that first instance when it comes across that specification. So you need to be aware of this and make sure you set your specs up accordingly. So for example, maybe you need to split your specs up into multiple files. So the other thing we need to do is to go to the project setup. We'll just close this and this, and we need to define what the default spec will be. So right now it's set to none because that means we were going to use the built-in data tables for PlantWise. So we're going to change this now to the spec that we just loaded in. So if you had multiple specs, you'd need to pick one as default. And we'll just see what effect that has here in a moment. All right, so now we're ready to go back into our model. So we'll open that. Use our basic demo again. Okay, so it's open. Now let's go take a look at the pipeline list here, and we'll see a change here. So now if we open this up, we can see that the specification that it's going to use OPM for routing that pipe. And here we could also have, if we had multiple specs in there, we could select a different one. And so that's how you would handle going through and changing which spec to run for each pipe. Okay, and now we're ready to, I guess, close this and route the model again. So once again, it routes the model. Should only take like a second or two again. And let's go back and look at one of our pipes too, and we can see, just edit this pipe. We go down here, we can see now that it has actually used those sysids from the OpenPlant spec for the various components in that pipeline. And so that's what it's going to use when it goes and converts it into OpenPlant Modeler. Oops, sorry about that. Close that off. And just because we're using OpenPlant specs doesn't mean that we have lost any of that functionality. We can do our same kind of edits as before. It's just a different source of data, that's all. The modeling capabilities in PlantWise are the same. So we're pretty much finished now in PlantWise. So what we want to do is start that migration over to OpenPlant. So remember, we had 3 different parts that we're going to convert. So the first being structural. So to do this, our first step is actually to go to the reports, export, and we're going to export the structure to an SDNF file. SDNF meaning, I think it's steel detailing neutral format. So this itself, I don't believe, is a new functionality. We've had this for a while, so we'll just go and make SDNF, make a folder on, make a folder on our desktop for that, and it's exported that right away. So let's just go take a look what it's done. It's created a few files there. So we're going to go now to Pro Structures and open that up. So ideally we would be able to create this integrated structural model directly from PlantWise, but we can't do that right now. But if we create this ISM, we can bring that into OpenPlant Modeler. So what we have to do first is create an empty model here for us, and let's just make sure that that is using a metric seed file. So give it a couple of seconds here to first create this. Now we can open that, and so give it a few more seconds where it will open up this empty model in Pro Structures. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, maybe we're not. There we are. Alright, so we've got our empty model here. We don't need that. We'll just close that off. So we need to do a couple of imports here. So we go under the ProSteel menu item, import, and go up and find our folder we created. Get in there. Okay, change our file type to SDNF, main. Open that up. It's got a couple little dialog boxes, and we can see our pipe rack there. And we just got to go and repeat that once more. Do the tank pedestal. Okay, so we've got imported from the SDNF files. Now what we're going to do is create our ISM. So we go over to the menu here, create repository, and let's go back and put this in our same folder, SDNF. Select a view. So there's just a few little mechanical steps to run through here. Sorry, I need Jeopardy music for this. and just a little info on mapping, which is okay. And now after that, it should bring up our structural synchronizer, which will allow us to put everything into the ISM. And the pace will pick up here in a minute or two. We'll get to some more interesting things. Okay, so we've got everything here. We can select it all, accept it, and we don't need a commit message or anything. So we've almost created that ISM. There we go. And it wants us to save things because it's changed. It's fine. All right, now let's open up OpenPlant Modeler. So if we go and look in here again, we see we have our ISM model. And we can open up OpenPlant Modeler, make sure we have the metric project as well. Then once OPM opens, we'll reference that in and then really start getting our conversions running. Okay, so here's our empty model now. So what we want to do is go to our structural and repository, update from repository, and we'll go on our desktop, find our SDNF, import that, and we'll go through sort of the same steps as when we created the ISM. Select all, accept, and update. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got our structures into OpenPlant. Now let's maybe just make this window a little different size here. Not quite. All right, so we're ready to do some conversions now. So right now, in this release, we don't actually have the menu items integrated with OpenPlant for these conversions. So you do have to run a couple of commands in order to do that. Obviously, we're going to change this in the future, but for now, this is what we have to do. So we'll do an MDL load, and what we're going to do is import PlantWise, if I remember this correctly. Yes, so now we can see that we've got this loaded, and so we just run that, and that brings up this little UI. So once we've done that, we can get rid of that. We won't need that again. So one thing to also remember for this is that we do have to have the PlantWise model open at that time because it goes and reads data from that model. But we can see that it has done that, so let's just open that up here. All right, so we've got all of our equipment here, so we can select all of that. You could pick whichever ones you wanted to convert. That would be fine, but we're going to do everything for both of this. Hit apply, and it's going to go and create that equipment in OPM. So that was fairly quick to do that. So let's take a look at that little exchanger. We're going to modify that component. Just expand this view a wee bit here. And we're going to switch over to pipelines. Once again, we've got that whole list of pipelines. We're going to select them all and hit apply and start that conversion. So it's going to go through, as you see, each time it does a pipeline, it updates the UI with that. So it's going to go march through all these pipelines here. It'll take a couple of minutes to do that. While it's doing that, let's talk a little bit about the equipment. So if you're familiar with OPM, you can see that this was created as a parametric equipment. So we've tried to match where we could parametric equipment between PlantWise and OPM. As it turns out, I think in this model, all the equipment converts to parametric equipment, but that's not always possible. You know, the equipment models between PlantWise and OPM at this point are quite different. So when we do run into that equipment that we can't convert to a parametric equipment, we convert that to a custom equipment in OpenPlant. So overall, we are able to convert all the equipment. And so it should be just about done here. Once it finishes all the piping, it's going to ask us to run a connectivity checker, which we want to do. So just give it another few seconds. Okay, yes, let's run it. So it does find a few issues here, which we do have the connectivity checker fix for us. So it's managed to fix all the errors. You do occasionally get some warnings in the model though, but they should be few warnings on things and should be minor to fix. So we can zoom in here and maybe just take a look. So this is a real model. We can do a bunch of edits if we want. I'm not going to edit things in here right now, but we have converted all that piping for the most part. Everything should be matched up correctly. So here, one way to check that would be to run isometrics on that. So we'll just go open up my pipeline manager, and we'll take this one. I think it's the same one from the PowerPoint earlier. So open that up in ISO Sheet Manager, and we're able to fairly quickly create an ISO sheet on that. And these days now we can do that right from within OPM. So we've just selected that pipe and all its components, put it on an isometric, and now it's trying to generate that isometric for that pipeline. Give it a few more seconds and it should do it. Okay, it's generated that isometric, and we can show that. So there we've got our bill of materials. We've got, oops, it's too zoomed in too much. Got our dimensioned isometric, etc. So just a quick little check on that to kind of show that we've got a good model here. All right, so let's just summarize what we've gone through here today. Close these off. So we started with our PlantWise model here. Let's just zoom in on that a little bit. So where we could automatically route our piping, change our layout to try and optimize our conceptual design. Then we switched over, used OpenPlant specifications for that, rerouted the model, and started converting it to OpenPlant. First we did the structural and then the equipment and piping. And this has kick-started the detailed design phase of this little project. So before we go to questions, I thought it would be good to give you a little idea of how you can try this out. So the first thing you need to do is, let's close that and close that, would be to go and download this. So you can download it from our fulfillment center, which can be accessed from bentley.com. So this is release number 8.11.12.26. And then once you download and install it, we do have a little document. If you go to our documents folder here, this is on the PlantWise installation. We can see we've got this little document here, importing PlantWise data into OPM, and it runs through a whole bunch of different steps, such as what bits of software you need, etc. Basically, it's the same steps that I showed today in terms of converting the model. So that's pretty much it. So thanks everyone for watching. Now let's go over and check to see if you have any questions. Okay, so we've got one question here. So are we able to choose specifications from ProjectWise? At this point, no. You would have to export those to a file first before we could see that. But that's an interesting idea. So, but right now, no, you do have to check those out. It's only based on what's available in the files. Okay, we've got another question. It seems that pull space is missing in OPM model. Good point. I don't know OPM well enough to answer that. I'll get back to you on that. That's a good question, but I don't know the answer to that. Unless, Bill, do you have any knowledge on that? If you do, just ping me on that.
OPM equipment doesn't have the pull space. It doesn't show it. So that's an addition. In PlantWise shows it as that obstacle, but that's not a concept that OpenPlant Modeler has, to have a physical thing attached to the equipment to represent obstacles.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Okay, another question here. What types of equipment are converted to parametric equipment in OpenPlant and which get converted to custom equipment? So if we go to our doc here, under equipment, I think. So yeah, so here we do explain. So these are the types that get converted to parametric equipment here. Everything else is custom equipment. Oh, actually, we got some help from a fellow Bentley person on it. Reserved, back to the question on the pull space, reserved areas are placed separately for equipment. So, okay. All right, what versions of OpenPlant Modeler does this work with? At the moment, we have only tested this with, here's the version number, the current SS6 refresh release, which is 08.11.11.238. So I believe there is another build of OpenPlant Modeler coming out the next while. We haven't tested it yet against this upcoming release. If you do need to use it with that release, just let us know and we can maybe run through a series of tests on that as well. Okay, and as EcoSim has the same functionality with respect to ISM, we can use EcoSim as a repository versus ProSteel, correct? I believe that is true. I have not tried that myself, but yes, that's the idea. I don't think it should matter where the ISM comes from. I don't know for sure if EcoSim will import the SDNF or not, though. That's the only thing I'm not sure about. Okay. All right, so I don't think we have any other questions. Allie, are we clear on the questions?
I believe we got them all. All right, great.
Okay, thanks everyone.